Money has been my greatest spiritual teacher. I feel like I've been through so many scenarios with money and really having to like reconcile what my thoughts are about money. I've been in situations where I'm labeling it a need for money, but when I really think about where I am like right now today, am I okay? Yes.
From Mezclada, this is the Transcendent Farmer podcast, created to inspire and empower the next generation of land stewards, with your host, Emily Reno. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast. I am currently recording from Eagan, Minnesota, of all places. And I want to start today's interview and episode a little bit differently than I've done in the past. Wherever you find yourself, if you're driving, moving around, maybe you're sitting down, I would love to just invite you to take a deep breath with me and kind of settle into the space that you find yourself. So you can inhale and exhale through the mouth. I just want you to enjoy this pause and allow yourself to set some kind of intention. I think that's a really big theme for this conversation with April. And I think you're going to love the way that we dance with these themes of imagination and play. It's kind of like you're just listening into a conversation with a couple of friends. We talk about manifestation, April's winding path in life, growing up in North Dakota and having this international travel bug that led her abroad and then back again, and this idea of feeling what you want before it's even here. I think it's really cool that the book that is mentioned in this interview, I actually just borrowed from a friend, and it focuses on this very topic, right? Intention. I also wanted to share a few updates on the business front, as I think many of you know that I'm somewhat of a globetrotter. I find myself on the road quite a bit in the last several weeks that I've been in Minnesota. I haven't really taken the time to slow down, and I think the most that I do is probably when I'm on the highway right now, driving from one place to another, and apparently using up 75% of my family's data plan on our phone. It's just been a really, really magical time getting to visit all of these farms, new places, old faces, and just feeling so nourished and supported and loved, and feeling that for, I think, one of the first times in my life, I have just as much love, nourishment, and support to provide for the people around me. And that's been a really special time. And I'm still determining, how do I share what I'm learning with everyone? If you guys have a preferred medium, let me know. Maybe it's just one of these chats where instead of sharing an interview, I can just kind of share my takeaways and lessons learned, and how I think that's relevant for all of you out there who are seeking access to farmland and trying to support the emerging and minority farmer community. As we move into the month of September, I'm really excited about spending a couple of more weeks in Minnesota and then headed back to Costa Rica after that. If you find yourself in West Central Minnesota, I do recommend coming out to see me at the Deep Roots Festival on Saturday, September 14th. That will take place in Frazee, Minnesota, for all of you Minnesota-based listeners, which, as it turns out, according to Spotify analytics, that makes up a whopping 85% of you. So whoop, whoop, go Minnesota. And for all of you international listeners, thank you. I appreciate your support. And I think the only other thing that's kind of on the horizon at the moment as it relates to just stuff that I'm creating and piloting will be some new online offerings coming to you most likely in October, once I've given myself a little bit of transition time kind of from one country to another. So with that, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this conversation with April, and I can't wait to hopefully see you in person, and if not in person, in digital space somehow. I have a special guest with me here today on this lovely October day. We're enjoying fall here in North Dakota, which is where we're recording from today. Her name is April Olson-Mata, and we were connected not too long ago, maybe about a month ago, through a shared colleague. And it's just
been super cool in the brief time that I've known you to just kind of get a sense of what you're all about. And it was pretty evident, I think, after the first time that we really got time to sit down. And I was like, oh, yes, like I need to have her on the podcast. So I'm really excited to be introducing April to you. And she is the owner of AMO Consulting, where she provides coaching to women who want to create new outcomes in their professional life. She holds a space where women can release the weight of having to do it all and know it all so that they can reconnect with their innate superpowers and wisdom in their bodies. Her gift is seeing the highest version of her client and helping them so they can see and remember them too. It is in that process of remembering women who transformed their professional and personal lives. So for the last 20 years, April has been actively practicing creating the exact career, salary, car, house, family, and life, only to release it and recreate it again in the form of a business where she can share it with others who also desire to create new outcomes. So welcome, April.
Oh, thank you, Emily. I've been so excited to come today and have this conversation with you since we first met just recently. So
Yes. So I want to dig into the first question that I always ask guests, just to sort of ground ourselves and our audience in kind of who you are. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your cultural background and upbringing and how that has shaped who you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up about 40 minutes north of here on a farm, but it was a horse farm. So we didn't have, crops necessarily, but we did bale all our own hay. My mom hauled sugar beets. So it was like in our small town, farming was the thing. Like it was the economy and what a lot of people did, or a lot of lives were shaped around that. It definitely shaped my life. Like I think of myself now, I'm like, I hated baling hay then. I hated it. I wanted to be with my friends. I wanted to be doing that, but it's like that effort, like using your body in a physical way to produce something has really stuck with me. And I'm really glad I had that experience of, even just learning to drive like these really difficult, dumpy, like stick shift trucks.
Yes.
That I wasn't sure even fit down the road. So it's like all of that is really stuck with my personality, just like the adventure. And really, really what's come through is like all that time in nature. I was an only child. I just had a dog. We just wandered the forest. We had horses and animals, right? And so that has stuck with me. Like anytime I need to recenter or ground, it's nature. It's always nature. I've lived in some big cities and we've come back here because there just wasn't enough nature. There was a lot of concrete and a lot of, just busy energy. And I love the big skies and, everything you can observe in nature here. So I think that definitely has shaped who I am today.
Yeah, I definitely hear you with like the using the physical body. I was just thinking about this morning. Yesterday, we were at the farm and you're closing out the end of the season, removing all of the plastic mulch from the field. It's like one of the worst activities to do. And even worse when it's where all of the rotting melons are. And it was just, we were just covered in that stuff. And there are these moments where you're stepping in it with your boot and then it splashes up in your face. Just so messy. But it's such a good time. And I love how it's such a functional thing, that you're able to keep your body active and also produce food, for example. So
yeah. When I was 14, my very first job was cleaning barns. So my mom was working in training horses.
Yeah.
And so that was the first job. And it's fun. She still has horses. So now my girls are around and we still get to go back and they get a few of those experiences. I think it just helps them be more well-rounded, or just adds to what they know from living in the city here.
And one of the things that we had connected on very early on was sort of our shared interest and passion in spiritual growth or personal development. And I'm just curious to know if you believe in magic.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I just think of how we met, and that's magic to me, right? So it's like I do believe in magic. So then therefore it does happen to me, right? Like whatever you believe, you're gonna look for that evidence and then you see it and you find it. So it's like, I ran into your colleague just completely random at a concert that I went for my daughter. It's not even for me, right? And connect with her after years, and I didn't even know she was going to introduce us, but there was something she knew, like the energy or what we're interested in,
Yes.
like that we would get along. And the fact that we ended up in, I think, 2 different places that neither of us normally go to, and met each other twice before our coffee date. And then on our coffee date, you bring me seeds for my favorite flowers. So like all of those touch points to me are magic. I mean, people could call that luck or coincidence, or they could just like have no awareness about it and just not even, it doesn't even process for them. Like it's just passing by like a movie, and they're not processing or thinking, oh, it's just cool, and then they move on. But I tend to like, that fuels my life. To me, that is spirituality, like with my eyes open. It's like all these little synchronicities and things about showing up at that networking group that neither of us are actually a part of, and you're there and getting those seeds. It's like, how do you know this is my favorite? Why would you even bring this to me? Right. And so it's like, those are, to me, those little like winks of like, whatever you believe in, whatever, the greater force is, spirituality, divine, God, whatever you want to name it. Yeah, those are just like those little nudges and winks that like fuel me to keep me going. Like, I just see them as the little breadcrumbs of like, okay, I'm on to something, or, take the next step, or you just get that inspiration from that. Yeah.
Yes. Can you describe any other experiences that you feel maybe could only be explained by magic?
Oh, boy.
This episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast is sponsored by Compeer Financial, a member-owned farm credit cooperative providing financial products and services to support agriculture and rural communities in Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Compeer Financial is the 3rd largest cooperative in the farm credit system. Based in the upper Midwest with $31.9 billion in total assets, they take a forward-thinking approach to provide innovative, customized financial solutions and expertise to meet the unique needs and dreams of those they serve. Contact Cy Tao, Senior Lending Specialist at 612-597-4086 or by email at cy.tao, that's sai.thao, @compeer.com. Compeer Financial is an equal opportunity employer and provider and an equal credit opportunity lender. You can tag them at #ChampionRural.
Like, I have so many because this is just how I operate my life.
Yeah.
I guess I go to, meeting my husband is a big one. So I was in college. I'd already done 2 study abroads in Mexico. My first passion ever. Well, here we go, right? Like, I wanted to learn Spanish. I mean, where did that come from, right? I'm living in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota on a farm. And now I'm obsessed with learning Spanish, and I have stickers all over my room. And I wasn't old enough to actually take Spanish class in high school. So I was listening to tapes, and it was like an obsession, right? So it's like, well, first of all, where did that even come from, right? Where did that drop in? And then I was on my second study abroad and realized like I didn't speak Spanish to the point like I wanted to. And so it was so late that there was only 2 programs still left open. One was in Mexico, and I'd already been there, and the other one was Ecuador, and I did not even know where Ecuador was in the world, right? I had to look at a map.
Yes.
And okay, sure, I'll go there. And I didn't have the money for it, but it's like, I had to believe I was going, it was like, I was going. And I remember it being like 2 weeks away from the time we were supposed to be there. And I still didn't have a plane ticket, and I still didn't have the money, but I just happened to open my financial aid account. And for the first time ever, like, I don't know where it came from. It never had happened before, but there was money, like there was scholarship money, or there was money in my account. And so it's like instantly I bought the plane ticket. And, at the time, I think I shared this with you, but it was like, at the time I had said to myself, I'm not dating anybody, right? I'm not dating anyone. I'm not getting married at like till I'm 30, which was, I think, gave me 10 years. I have too much to do. I'm too, I have things I want to do.
Yeah.
And within probably 90 days of getting to Ecuador, I was married.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like I met my husband. Well, obviously, it wasn't my husband when I met him, but it wasn't even love at first sight, because that was my mindset. Was like, I'm not even looking for anybody. Like, there's nothing there's just nothing on the radar here.
Yeah.
And so we met each other, and we're just in friend groups, right? So we just kind of kept connecting until one time we all went to the beach. We all took a vacation together, like for the week, and then there was interest, right? Like, oh, right, something sparked, or it was like, now I'm curious. And yeah, so, and we're still married. We have 2 kids. Yeah, and so we've been married, I've lost track, I think 18 years now.
Wow.
So it's like, that really shouldn't have worked out. Like, I shouldn't have been in Ecuador. I didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't looking for anybody, and we didn't know each other. Like, all we just knew was there was something, right? There was some spark. There was something that it was like, I think we both just knew we needed to pursue it. Like, we couldn't just leave it. We couldn't just leave it and go our own ways. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's marriage advice I give to everybody else, but it's an example of magic for me. It's like, and I often reference that when I'm creating something and it feels impossible, or I'm not sure how. It's like, I just think back to that, and it was like, at that age, I think maybe I wasn't influenced by life as much, where I just was like, this is happening.
Yeah.
I never questioned it. I didn't doubt it. Like, I just knew it was going to happen. And I don't even remember trying to like think and figure out how. But yeah, so it's like the money came in, the plane ticket got bought, and then it's, there's some really cool magical things with my husband, like learning. He really grew up in pretty, I don't know, like a magical household. Like his grandpa worked in the Amazon rainforest and jungle as sort of like a governmental official, as I understand. And so it was like immersed in those cultures and bringing those back into his home. And, he was exposed to, when we talk about just like herbs as medicine and teas and natural, just this really natural way of living. Like when I met him, he's picking dandelions and making tea out of them. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Only to find out it's really beneficial for you. And, his grandma and his family, his grandma's still alive. It's really cool. My daughters have been able to spend time with her, but like her knowledge about planting, don't plant on a full moon, because it's when the grubs and the worms and stuff are more active.
Wow.
And so she's saying you should plant it at different times. So it's like, it's interesting. Like, all this knowledge has come through my husband, and just some energy practices that his family holds, and they had an altar in their home, and these are just very different from how I grew up, but in some way feel really magical. Like, they are very much part of me, and then they're coming through him too. So.
Yes. And that's so cool to be able to have some of that stuff that you can sort of carry on the tradition or the knowledge that it's not dying, and you could share that with your kids. Just over the weekend, I had the opportunity to go to a seed saving workshop with some Latino farmers out in Vergas, Minnesota. And one of the cool things that it was totally unrelated to why we were there, but one of the farmers pointed out this moss that was on a rock up on the hillside. And he's like, come over, Emily. Like, I want to show you this. And I was like, oh, okay, let's take a look. Let's, I have no idea what he's talking about. And so then he starts to point out this moss, and he starts like scraping it off. And he says, in Mexico, one of the common things that we do as part of a child that is about to be born is they'll create this altar, and they'll take this moss and they'll put it on there, and they'll spray it with like a little spray bottle, and then it'll start to grow again. And they call it flor de piedra, which is flower of the rock. And it's just like this beautiful thing. And it's like, this little piece of nature that you bring inside. And I don't know, for any of the listeners out there that are familiar with what moss looks like when it's growing and sprouting again, it's very cool, because they're like these really stringy, kind of very thin, delicate stems that will come out, and then it almost has this little pod on the edge. I've taken so many photos over the years randomly of, moss that was sprouting or something like that, but it's cool, right? These little things that you'd never know unless somebody else told you about.
Yeah. She was here 2 summers ago, and she showed my girls where to find the seeds on our flowers that I had. I didn't even know those flowers had seeds. I mean, I guess maybe common sense would tell me that, but no one showed me. So now my girls know how to like find the seeds off these flowers and collect them, and we're replanting them. So yeah, they were burning Palo Santo in the house all the
Yes.
time, my mother-in-law. And I think we talked about this at coffee, but even cleaning energy with an egg,
Yes.
like using the egg. And, like at first, this is so foreign to how I grew up, but,
Yeah.
and then to actually see when she cracked the egg, it wasn't raw, like it was cooked, like you could see that it had picked up something, right? Some energy.
That's
So
wild.
yeah, so it's like bringing some of this knowledge, reviving it, remembering it, having her teach it,
Yes.
having my husband grow up really immersed in it. Yeah, it's a really interesting, I've come about it my own just because I love it. And then to realize like, oh, he actually knows this, or he has some knowledge of it, or his grandma talked about it, or yeah.
That's so neat.
What a great conversation, right? I'm so excited to keep sharing these interviews with you and help you think differently about farming, wellness, mental health, and business development in a way that really supports who you are as a person instead of working against what society tells you that you need to do. If you're getting value out of this, one of the ways that you can support our continued production of the podcast is really simple. You can buy us a coffee, because it's not just me that's producing this podcast. I actually have a team of people that support me in this work. All you have to do is visit buymeacoffee.com/MEZCLADA.co, and you can put that $5 that you would have spent on a coffee this week and invest it in a team of people and social enterprise that's working to make more space for the voices and needs of new farmers globally. As a way of saying thank you, we'll be doing a monthly post on social media with a shout out to all of our contributors, because we just love you that much. Again, that's buymeacoffee.com/MEZCLADA.co, where you can buy as many cups of coffee or chai, if you're like me, as you would like. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can even become a monthly contributor. You can find all the details online, but I don't want to miss another second of this conversation. So let's get back to the episode.
So I'm curious to know, when do you feel like you first understood some of the mechanics? And this is, changing themes a little bit from magic to manifestation, but we talked a little bit about that before. And I'm just super curious to know, sounds like you've had a lot of experience with manifestation yourself. And I think that's something that a lot of listeners are interested in, is understanding, pull the curtain away and see what's actually going on here.
Yeah. So this is, I feel like we could just talk the whole time about this. And I don't think that I think the last topic about spirituality, it very much for me is all connected. But, I think back to what the story I just shared, I was manifesting then without really knowing it. And that's what I would say to like the listeners. I think everybody's always manifesting. Like, are you just being intentional about it? Right? So are you just manifesting another crappy day and a cold coffee and like a crabby person at the checkout line, right? Or the slowest checkout line? Or are you being intentional and choosing something? So I would say then it came in, some of the mechanics came in through the movie The Secret. I don't know, have you seen
I've
it?
heard of it. Yeah. It's like a classic, I think, in this space, and I feel bad that I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I would say it's a classic, and it's for me, it was sort of like an intro, like it's not the whole story, but it just bring awareness to things. It was already happening in my life, but it gave it context, and it was like, oh, like you could do this and you could put fuel on the fire, so that's where I say it came in. And then I was reading Dr. Wayne Dyer books, right? The Wish is Fulfilled was really inspirational to me on this journey of like how to actively manifest. I think it's a practice. I think everybody can do it, and I think you can get better at it as you practice it. So that book was really, he taught in the book that, to choose using an I am statement. So it's like, I am working in meaningful work. And so it sometimes when you make these, they feel very far away from like where you currently are. So it feels weird to say I am. And if you just think of English language, it's like, you're not saying I hope to one day,
right?
Or I wish, or I dream, because actually then you're just placing it somewhere out there. So it's like by using the I am statement, you're bringing it in a lot closer. And then he explains in there too that, in the Bible, they say, right, like, oh, well, God, you're sending me somewhere. Well, who am I supposed to say sent me? And he says, I am, right? So it's the name of God. So it's whether you believe in the Bible or what it has to say, or God. But I think in some sense, it has a frequency to say I am. I actually was going to bring this and I didn't, but it's like at that time I wrote down a bunch of I am statements and I manifested all of them, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I manifested the career. I was promoted 6 times to a vice president role. Like the only role above me was really the president.
Yeah.
At the time I was making, I think, $27,000 a year, and I wrote down I wanted to make $100,000, and I got a $30,000 raise that brought me to $101,000.
Oh my God.
I wanted a husband who spoke Spanish, who would, dance and cook, cooking and dancing in our kitchen. And it's what we do. Like, it's what we do. We were just dancing just a few days ago. I wanted a very specific car, and I couldn't find it. I kind of gave up. I'm just going to go get like something closer to that version. And as I pull up, the car is on one of those like rock waterfall things, right?
Yes,
and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, right? Like, it was hatchback. It's the brand I want. It was a Subaru. I wanted 4 doors. It had to be white, right? Like the whole thing. Yes. And it was like, oh, there's my car. So what I would tell you, I've evolved the practice of, so I would say step 1, first of all, like create an intention. Like, where are you going? What do you want? Because if you don't, then you're just going to get whatever, right? Exactly. Like, you're just going to get probably what you've always been getting in your past. You're just going to keep recreating that. So it's like, first of all, just be mindful and take a little bit of time to choose what it is you want. And that could be something very specific, like that car example. Or it could just be maybe like for me right now, I'm really working on like a new depth of happiness and gratitude and joy, like just to really feel that now without needing anything from outside of me. So it's like cultivating that. So that would really be, I would tell you, step 1, like write them down and write them like as an I am statement. And I've done this with my clients, and it's amazing to see like how quickly and how many of them, I mean, they're shocked because like when you write it down, it feels so far from your current reality, and it doesn't feel like there's any way, and you can't see and you don't know how. And then to actually show like how powerful you really are when you put your, you put your intention and your mind and your energy into it.
Yes.
And then I would say, secondly, the thing that really like accelerated it for me in the last probably since 2020, as I started following Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and he really adds energy to it. So not only is it just a thought, like an intention, but now you're adding energy to it. So, we both could have woke up today, same place, same city, right? If I'm going to say this is the worst day ever, and you're going to say this is the best day ever, we're going to find evidence for that, right? And then I'm going to start feeling that way, and you'll start feeling a different way. So it's about practicing a feeling too. So like, how would I feel if I have the husband dancing? How will I feel with the car? How am I going to actually feel when I want to feel this different level of happiness? Like, you can actually start feeling these things now. You don't need anything outside of you. You can feel it. You don't need to wait.
Yes.
And so it's like, if you can start feeling that love and gratitude and excitement, the creation, a lot of times it's like how we met. Like, that's why I say I live for that stuff, because it's like it validates and increases that energy of like, well, it's so fun. This is so exciting. It's so unknown, right? Like, oh, that felt like magic. And so it's like, if you can create that feeling and add it to that intention, then I'll even hear from clients like, I actually don't need the promotion anymore. Like, you already feel like you have it.
Yes.
You don't even feel like you need the thing. And then I just say, like, buckle up your seatbelt. Like, here it comes. Because like it's now you're a match, and it's gonna come in. And thirdly, it's not like going out and making it happen or looking for it. It's just like being excited to see like, oh, how's it going to come in? Because if you're out looking for it and then you start to feel lower emotions, right? Like, well, how? And I can't, and then there's like frustration comes in. So have to have it a little bit playful, a little bit like a little lightness to it too, and surrendering it.
Yes.
And then just keep practicing, right? Like, if it didn't happen the first time, well, then you just keep going. Like, just let your life be an experiment and let it be playful, and then see what comes.
This episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast is sponsored by Massage Alchemy Botanicals and Turkey Road Farm Products based in Castleton, North Dakota, and owned by Shannon Radcliffe Beach. Shannon is an organic farmer, herbalist, massage therapist, and earth mother. Her mission is to promote health and wellness by connecting people with the healing power of plants. To achieve this, Shannon crafts herbal remedies and products made from the herbs and berries she grows on her farm, as well as hosting events and classes that teach practical herbal knowledge and how to live more harmoniously with the cycles of nature. Find out more about their products and services by visiting their website or following them on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.
I'm curious to know, because I feel like there's probably some people who are out there listening to this, and they're probably at different ranges of the spectrum in terms of the need for some of this stuff to come through, right? Like people that might be living in maybe somewhat of a tumultuous time, and it could be related to their safety, it could be related to finance, like they actually need some of this stuff to come through, right? Whereas there may be other people who are just, they're okay with where they're at with things, but they just want to play with this a little bit. Would you have any recommendation about like start with something that's low stakes, or do you feel like it's just a go big or go home, try it, worst case scenario it doesn't work? Like, I don't know, do you have any advice just based on your own experiences?
Yeah, all of the above. Like if you're just starting, it can be fun to just do like a free cup of coffee or a penny, right? Like I had somebody who was brand new to this and she was trying to figure out what to do with her job, and she just like, okay, if I see a penny on the floor at work, then it's a sign, right? It meant something for her. And it's like it happened, right? And then she reaches out. So you could start with something easy, but yeah, why not? If you're creating all the time anyway, and you're mostly creating what you already know, like why not dream? I think a lot of people, actually, I find in my work, I talk to a lot of people and they've stopped dreaming. Right? It's like getting back to being childlike and having an imagination and letting yourself dream. Like we've either been so numbed by our environment or society, or, what we think we should be doing, what we think our parents think we should be doing, whatever that might be, that we've stopped dreaming for ourselves, or we're just, people are so busy. Whether that's a conscious choice or an unconscious choice, I think being so busy that you can't think or feel is really a numbing device. And so that's some of the work I do, is like, why are we numbing and how do we unnumb and what's under that, and using that to help create. I think your original question, and if you're really in a situation, obviously you're in a safety situation, do something to make sure that you're safe.
Yeah.
But I think you can do this if you feel like there's a need and it needs to come in quickly. Yeah, my tip for that would just really be cultivating it today. Like if it's a money situation, money has been my greatest spiritual teacher, to be honest. I feel like I've been through so many scenarios with money and really having to like reconcile what my thoughts are about money. And so it's like I've been in situations where I'm labeling it a need for money, but when I really think about where I am, like right now, today, am I okay? Yes. And it's like, like I'm practicing that thought of need or scarcity, and it's actually not true in this moment. Like I actually have plenty, and I'm not even feeling gratitude for what I have or what's coming in is like never enough. And so it was flipping that, like it was really working on those thoughts and the feelings about what is happening with a need with money, if I feel like it urgently needs to come in. I think if you have a tool that helps you feel these feelings, for me it's meditation or like heart coherence breathing. It could be, and being out in nature. So if it's exercise, walking, any kind of tool, mindfulness tool where you can give yourself a pause, a break, a breath from your current situation of need. And when you do that, even if you just simply like breathe through your heart a little slower and deeper than you usually do, you give yourself, it regulates your heart rate and it regulates your brain waves. And now something new could come in. So suddenly you think of the name that you need to reach out, that creates the contract, that creates the money. but you're not going to get there if you're totally drenched in stress hormones and your heart and your brain are dysregulated.
Exactly.
You're going to remain in scarcity and need and that feeling of like, I need it now. And so finding some kind of practice that lets you have a little space and literally changes your brain and your body, the function of your brain and the body, so that you can receive the new creative idea for the video you put out, or the course you're going to put out, or the person you need to reach out to, or I just think even in farming, it's like the land's alive, and so are the crops and the weather. So it's getting yourself in a space where you can listen and hear, and then be brave enough to act. Like when you actually hear the thing come in, you're like, give me the sign, oh God, not that sign. Because a lot of times these things, the act is going to be outside your known, outside your comfort zone, and your brain and your body are designed to keep you exactly the same. And so when you're going to do the new thing that could get you out of the situation, it's going to feel sweaty. It's going to feel teary. It's going to feel, there's going to be a lot of feelings that will come up about I could fail, or right, like you're going to have a lot of thoughts and feelings and sensations in your body. So find a practice that works for you, so you can have that space, so that you can get into a state, you could remember the thing you actually want to create and not get stuck in the fear. And you can actually feel the feeling by creating that space.
I mean, it's so important. And I think especially for a lot of the people who are listening, many of them are in a position where they know that they want to be farming full time. They're just looking for the resources that they can start their first farm. Maybe it's purchasing land, maybe it's the financial resources to purchase the equipment that they need. And I think a lot of folks out there are really interested in also thinking about how their farm is an expression of self and a vehicle for personal growth. And I'm just hearing like stress management is one of the biggest keys to creating the life that you want, right? Because manifestation has to come from a place where you're in your body, you are not in your head. And I think that's something that I really want to emphasize, especially in all of the educational things that I'd like to be able to offer to farmers, is that you have to cultivate any kind of practice that serves you, that helps you regularly get out of your bed, get out of your head and into your body. Because there's just, there's that intuitive intelligence that our bodies carry. And we've been taught and conditioned in society to ignore all of these like signals that are happening, whether it's like, oh, I'm starting to twitch in this part of my eye, or maybe I'm having muscle spasms in this other part of me. And you just go on ignoring it. And you keep going and going. And
like, as you're talking, I have goosebumps. So this is something I've come to recognize is like, it's truth, or we're onto something, like, right? So it's like, oh, I never noticed that until I actually took time to notice it. But
and until we can really give ourselves that opportunity to just listen to our own bodies, I don't think people are going to have a lot of success in that process of creation or creativity and imagination, playfulness that you talk about, tapping into this younger version of yourself that wasn't conditioned to think in all of these ways.
You're absolutely right that even my business, it's just an expression of me, and all this work is really to like get to know myself. And so then it becomes some tools that I can help offer others to do the same. And I really see, like, what you just said about farming, it is an expression. It's an expression. And as they change, their methods will change, and their ideas will change, and their connections will change. But it's an internal game. And the stress management. Like if you're like, I'm currently working on something I'm creating that is this, right? Like, I don't have any clue where it exists. I I have a lot of conditioned thoughts to believe it's not for me. There's no way. I'm not sure. Oh my God, the money's going to run out. Right? Like the tape that I usually play is there in the background, but I'm trying to quiet, like through my practices, I can quiet that enough to like believe in possibility and opportunity, and to drop into, now it's a practice and I've done it enough of just, I had to say no to something last week that in my head made no sense, and probably to anyone around me didn't make any sense. It was an amazing opportunity, but I had practiced enough to know in my body, it felt like a door I had to close before the next door would open.
Yeah.
And it's scary. And I don't know how, but I'm going to work, right? Like I'm doing my meditations, I'm believing, I'm feeling it, like as much as I'm doing it, doing the creation. And once you've done it a few times, like you said, you get to know the intelligence of your body. And do you get goosebumps? Do you feel the knowing? Does it drop into a certain part of you? Does the tight chest actually mean no, but you said yes? Like what's going on? And I just said, even simply like breathing through your heart with intention on your heart, just a little slower and deeper than you usually do, and think of something that brings you an elevated emotion, is going to completely, like we talked about, that stress relief is going to regulate your heart and going to regulate your brain waves. And it actually stops a cascade of 1400 like biochemical and hormonal responses like stress, right? It's cortisol in your body. And so this is how you can get out of your head. I know we have a lot of senses, right? In our head, our eyes, our ears, our mouth, like we're taking a lot through our head, and we've been conditioned to figure it out, to think through it, like all that's happening in your head. But if you can find that practice out on the land, walking, use your body, like there's so much intelligence in there. You're going to find the place where you make decisions. You're going to find your yeses, your nos. You're going to feel it. There's going to be something that happens outside of your head and in your body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even as you just say that, I'm thinking about the themes in sort of the rise in, I don't know, stuff that I'm just seeing right now within social media, books, what have you. And it's this idea of how everyone is trying to get back to teaching themselves how to feel. So for example, the whole somatics, right? Like that's all it is like somatic healing has to do with like feeling. And it's just interesting to think about themes. This is just a theory, but I'm wondering if on a global scale right now, we're just seeing like a huge rise in either personal coaches or these people who are freelancers, whatever they're doing, on just trying to reteach people how to do that because it's been lost. And I'm wondering like when, right? Like when was the point when it just disappeared off the map and we just stopped knowing, or like that knowledge was just not passed down? Like how was it passed down? I don't know.
I don't have the answer, but what I would tell you came through like just over the weekend. I was talking to my mom. We were just talking about my kids. It's like my daughter's in a preschool. They do Nurtured Heart. They had me come in and so I'm certified in personal resilience through the Heart Math Institute. So if anyone wants to know of an amazing tool that takes less than a minute on the go, like go to their website. They have some free classes. And they had me come in, and I taught all the teachers, and it's like the preschool does an amazing job. And then I watch my daughter who, is almost like she's in second grade, and it's don't make noise. You'll get a classroom party if you can sit still and not make noise. And I just think like my second daughter loves to hum and whistle, and it's like part of her personality. And it's like, for me as a parent, I'm like, oh, that hurts, right? So it's somewhere down the line, somewhere in society or conditioning or our families or whatever. It's like, I guess this is my personal view of this, but it's like we come in, 1 second after we're born, it feels like you're whole in your love, like you're just this pure energy, and then all the stuff starts happening, right? And kids can maintain that, but at some point all of a sudden you lose it. And so it's like refinding, recreating, remembering, remembering those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the human journey. I don't know nobody can really escape it.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like the human experiment everybody's
Yes.
on. Some know it, some don't.
Yes. Yes. Well, okay. So I think I want to talk a little bit about your transition in your career, because I think that it's a really valuable story for anybody out there who is maybe feeling stuck, especially the people who are trying to make this leap of faith and transition from maybe working a full-time job. They're farming on the side. They want to be working full-time on the farm, but maybe they can't figure out how to make it work financially. There's all kinds of factors that are being taken into consideration for that. But you made a transition in your career, and I'm curious to know, did any of these, I mean, it sounds like they did, but if you could shed some light on how some of your practices and understanding around spirituality and manifestation played a role in that.
Okay. In my transition, I would just say, like, back to that knowing, like, it dropped in so much that it was like there's this knowing that I just cannot stay. Like, I can't fake it. I could have faked it. I know I could have faked it for years, right? Like, nobody would have fired me. I still would have performed fine. I could have collected the paycheck that felt so good to collect, right? But I just knew somewhere deep in my body, my knowing, my soul, my heart, whatever that was, that I just couldn't be that person or do that. Yeah, it took a while. Like, I think I told you, my heart knew. I had launched this really cool kind of manifestation project about reducing homelessness and preventing evictions. And we had the launch party of something I had just kind of under the, just as a passion project on the side, been creating for like 8 years. And then it was live, and then there was, people running it. And I think deep in my cells, I knew the reason I was in that job was done. Like, that was it. But it probably took another 9 months or a year for for everything to catch up, my head to catch up, and then actually take the action. But it was wildly scary, like my husband's income doesn't fully cover. And so it's like, if I was going to quit my job, I have to create an income for myself. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. But what I would tell you is it's decision. Like, I just quit. Like, I had one client that didn't cover the expenses that I needed to cover, but I just knew so deep down, kind of like where I told you, one door had to close before the next door had to open. And I did I was doing my meditations, like, oh God, show me the sign, right? Like, just anything that felt like a little, like we talked about, a God wink or just any kind of sign. And mostly I just knew deep in my being that I just couldn't do that thing anymore. And I had to walk away to just see what would come. Like, there was really no plan. I really had no idea what I was doing. I did not know if it was going to work. Actually, for a long time, it really wasn't working, right? But this is the process where you say, like, if you want the crop or the farm or whatever to be you, that was me. Like, that was the journey I had to go on. I had to go on, like, being really fearful of money and reconsidering what that relationship was, like a money relationship. I had to invest when it was like so scary to invest I invested in a business coach. I had to fail. Like, it wasn't working, right? And it wasn't working the way I always knew to make things work. So, but only in that space can you create. Like, I was never going to meet the people I met in my job. Right. I was never going to see the opportunities. I was never like, if I'm there in that thing, I'm not, of course I can't see how, and I'm not actually even gonna see how until I do the thing. And then it's just a kind of a wild journey, like being an entrepreneur or owning a business or being a farmer, to see, you could use some of these tools to increase your belief and increase your, feel the feelings now, really feel the belief now. And I think just like our connection, I mean, there was something that Megan felt or saw that, oh, they need to connect, right? And then these magical things just start to happen. You get the equipment for way less than you should, and you don't really know why, but it just came in that way. Or you find the grant, or you find the business partner, or whatever. But I think this is why a lot of people don't do it, is because you actually, if you're going to create something new, you have to go to the unknown.
Yes.
And the unknown is the scariest place to be. You think you're going to die there. Like, I thought I was going to be homeless and dead. Like, that's what you're pretty positive. Like, that's going to be the outcome.
Yes.
But you can't create from your current situation. You're just going to keep creating the same stuff, and the same connections, and the same people, and the same ideas. So you have to go into the unknown. And actually, it's why I have on my business card, like, I'm a transformational doula. Like, I can't actually have the baby for you. You're gonna have to walk into the unknown. I had to walk into the unknown just recently, right?
Yeah.
And it takes your breath away, and it's scary. And you look around and you think, nobody understands what the heck's going on with me right now. Like, but that's the place you have to go. Like, you have to go there, and then you have to really find a tool that you can just stay in belief and creation. And
I feel like what you've just articulated has so helped me understand why I'm so passionate about bridging these worlds between farming and personal growth and development, which I'm just so excited right now, because I feel like that process of becoming a new person, of shifting your own identity, is all about getting out of your comfort zone. And until you can do that, to what you just said, right? You can't create something new with the same mentality as your previous self. And so it's only until you have these new thoughts that you're in different spaces. That's why I love travel. It's freaking awesome, right? Because you cannot have the same thoughts when you're in a foreign environment. Maybe you're surrounded by a foreign language. You're always on your toes. And then you are able to tap into connections that you would never have made otherwise. It's very cool. So thank you for that.
It's why if you learn something new, you go to some seminar or something, but you come back to the exact same life, it's like it doesn't stick.
Yes.
So it's like you have to break some of those bonds. You have to let some people go. You have to change your housing environment. You have to make some of those changes. And actually, one thing I didn't mention, but I feel like it's really important, and I'm not sure a lot of people are talking about it, but through that process, it's grief.
Yes.
You can feel grief. You're grieving who you used to be. You're grieving your past, like when I had to release a title, and then you have to show up at a networking event and you're like, I'm April. Like I felt like there was, you tie self-worth to this title or this thing. So there's grief. And it's like actually going through that whole process. And when you're in it, you feel crazy.
Yes.
You can feel all kinds of like, what's happening? I'm losing my mind. Well, actually, that's a good thing if you're losing the old mind, right?
Yes.
Or creating a new mind. So it's like there is a process of losing your mind and feeling grief and creating something new. It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
Like,
because it's both grief for you and for everyone around you. I feel like that's almost potentially more uncomfortable for people, is the way that others react to them in this new version of themselves.
I'm feeling so inspired by this conversation, and I hope you are as well. I wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to one of the Transcendent Farmer podcast's newest sponsors, the Fargo-Moorhead Wellness Collective. The FM Wellness Collective is a community of wellness practitioners in the Fargo-Moorhead area dedicated to supporting and empowering one another. They serve as a reliable resource for the community to connect with wellness professionals, making wellness more accessible and strengthening the culture of well-being in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Learn more by visiting the links in the show notes or finding the collective on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
But it's creating it's just sticking to that knowing and sticking to your decision, and realizing everybody has their own colored glasses on, right? And so they're processing how you're changing through their lenses, and that is actually theirs to process.
Yes.
If they choose to or not, right?
Yes.
It's you're holding up a mirror for those around you, and they're having some sort of reaction to the changes you're choosing or the decisions you're making. And it can really be a gift if they want it to be, and they want to see something in that, and they can choose to or not. And just realizing that's not your burden to bear. Like, you just really need to stay true to yourself. That's what your life's about, right? Like, you just need to choose for you and your path. And yeah, I kind of call it like, let all that like sandpaper like wear off any of the edges that aren't serving you and aren't loving to you and your creation. Like, you can use that as to do that.
So one of the questions that I always love to wrap conversations up with is, because, you know, you're on the Transcendent Farmer podcast, what does it mean to you to be a transcendent farmer?
I think it's a lot of what we talked about. Like, it's about the person evolving. And so if their vocation happens to be that they're a farmer, right, it's all about like that internal game and them becoming more of them, and becoming, reacting the way they want to react, listening to the way, you know, changing their methods because they've learned something, they've got some intuitive hit, they're cultivating their intuition, right? Like, a lot of times that's been told is not valid, and they're tuning back into all of those practices. And as they do that, their external world is going to change. And so the way that they are farming, or the crops they're planting, or how they're harvesting, or how they're interacting with any, you know, I don't know if you call them vendors, if that's a word in your like any vendors, or if they've hired anyone, how are they interacting with the people that are working alongside them? Like, all of that is going to change and evolve, you know, as they do. The methods are going to change, but I think anyone on the path, it's so beautiful, like, to see the land become live again and the whole process become live again. And that's happening through their healing and through their awareness growing, and the work that they're doing on themselves is going into that and creating something new.
I love it. And if people want to find out more about you and the work that you're doing, how would they do that? So they can come find you.
So it's just under my name, April Olson-Mata, whether that's on your favorite platform, so Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. That's how they can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, April. This conversation has been so lovely. I'm sure that people are going to get a lot of value out of it. I just wish you the best of luck in everything that you're doing. I sure hope that we have opportunities to connect and work together more.
Oh, I'm sure of it, like magic. And I wish you the best, and all of your listeners too, on their journeys.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening to another episode. We really appreciate it, and we will be back with another one soon. If you love this conversation as much as we did, feel free to share the love by passing it along to a friend or fellow farmer, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. Until next time, friends.